Hey guys, this is Mike. Welcome back to Fright Flicks and Killer Theories, kind of Killer Theories. I'm going to basically be going over Scream, MTV Scream, Season 2, Episode 1. This really isn't going to be Killer Theories because I haven't been able to, obsessively go through the entire episode. Plus, I mean, it's, only the first episode of the second season, so there's not really too many Killer Theories, although I have a million, but, that's the way it works. One of the other things about it is researching what ended up happening with the first season, that they didn't decide that Piper was the, spoiler alert, Piper was the killer until I think it was something like episode 6, something like that. They probably don't even know in this season who the killer is, so there's really kind of no point in over dissecting at this point. They're probably going to leave it open for a lot of people. Anyway, so this is going to be kind of more of a review and just my general thoughts on everything. So this episode was called I Know What You Did Last Summer. Interesting. Being that Kevin Williamson wrote that script. And, what's strange about it is I'm pretty sure that this is picking up, it didn't happen last summer, but whatever, this is irrelevant. This is something I heard, that every episode is going to take on the title of a horror movie. Episode 2 so far is called Psycho. Episode 3 is called Vacancy. We don't know what the rest of them are called yet. So this is just indicator 1 that they're trying to be a little bit more in love with horror movies than the last, season was, which is good. That's a step in the right direction. Let's just not take it too far. I was looking on IMDb, and don't worry, I'll point out anything I learned from IMDb because we all know how reliable they are. But there are 2 characters coming up. One, last name Myers. It's not spelled the same as Michael Myers, but anyway, Myers. And then there's another one called Kruger. I believe that one's spelled the same. But anyway, it's like, okay, let's not overdo this, but it's cool. They're making an effort. And one of the big things we'll get into later is specifically their brand of horror, which is pointed out very specifically to be horror comics. But anyway, this episode was directed by Brian Dannelly, who directed the Macaulay Culkin movie Saved, but more specifically to this, he directed episodes 4 and 5 of the previous season. Episode 4 was the one in the hospital. That one was abandoned hospital. That one was really cool. And so good for him on that one. But he also directed episode 5, which is pretty unanimously, at least as far as I say, the worst episode of the last season. So whatever. This episode was pretty well directed. I mean, it has a bit more style than the last season, but nothing quite jumps out. But anyway, first off is the first 7 minutes, which you can look elsewhere on our page. I did a whole commentary for the first 7 minutes and ended up running like 42 minutes. So I was like, holy hell, if I actually did a commentary for this episode, my goodness, I think we'd be here for 3 hours. So I'm going to not do that this time, but I think that's something I'm going to try possibly next time. We'll see. Anyway, one thing I pointed out in there was a close-up of that red piggy bank that Noah had. I'm like, watch for close-ups and stuff like that. That's going to become important. And sure enough, I'm not exactly sure if it was the same one. Not that it's Noah, whatever, but that was what was upside down, doing its little thing when Jake was captured, shall we say. I don't know how much that really has to do with anything. Again, I don't think they know just yet. But the thing is there's a lot of like pig, iconography in this, so it could just basically be that. But at the same time, Noah did have it. Go back, look, it's in there. So some of the big things for this new season, this first episode, was we met the new sheriff. I gotta say, I like this guy. This guy is actually like a pretty good actor. I like him thus far. considering that new characters are always kind of a thing with me, where I'm like, I don't like it. Like, it's just more fucking drama to get into. Ugh, whatever. The two new characters, three, I guess, that they introduced, four, including the sheriff, but Zoe isn't really sitting too well with me, but I mean, we only met her really quickly. Then we have the sheriff's son. Are we really going to do that whole plot point again, guys? Jesus. But anyway, he has that pretty good little like mini monologue about horror comics and stuff, so he's pretty cool. He draws really like morbid pictures and stuff. It's just like, oh god, are we going through Kieran again? But again, first episode, we don't know what their whole thing is going to be. And then we have our Mr. Branson Piper substitute, which is the new teacher. And I mean, if I had to say, I mean, it's a ways off because, I mean, it is Piper and Mr. Branson. But at the same time, like, I just kind of have this feeling that, as far as killers go, the thing is I just wonder if MTV is going to play it safe, basically, and not want to deal with the repercussions and the themes and the ideas of teen-on-teen violence. So that's why they use Piper, split the difference. She wasn't quite an adult, but she wasn't, a teenager in high school killing other teenagers. This could be a messy subject that, truthfully, I don't know if they have the guts to approach that kind of thing. So she makes an obvious candidate just for that, but I mean, at the same time, she is really fucking obvious. So anyway, with all her dream interpretation and already trying to be Emma's friend, but whatever. I'm not even going to really get into all that stuff. This is just some broad strokes things. One little minor quip, I got to throw this out here just because it's in my notes, and if I get off track, I'm going to like totally lose it, is everyone just buys beer, These are just little details that I pick up on, but like, it's fully established that they're still in high school, and yeah, they just readily, everyone buys beer and has access to beer. It's just like wish fulfillment writing or something. Either that or these people are so fucking off base with like teen culture that they don't even realize that you have to be a certain age to buy. Ugh, God. Anyway, small thing. Brooke and Jake in a relationship now. That makes sense, being what happened the last episode of the previous season, and totally makes sense being how this episode ended. Then there's talk of Emma's breakdown. I mean, that's all good, whatever. The one flashback we get to her actual breakdown was very, like, anticlimactic, or however you want to put it. But maybe they'll go into that a little bit more. I'm pretty sure that they will, but whatever. That's just a lot of style to make up for the fact that she basically, like, sits down on the floor. Anyway, Noah is still the best thing about this show. Gotta love Noah. He's still on point. His character, the actor, everything. Noah, great. You should just make the show about Noah. Which brings me to the point where we need less Emma, guys. Need less Emma. We got our fill of her last season, and her story is, as far as I care, truthfully, over. Like I said, the Maggie stuff can continue. Brandon James stuff is also interconnected with everybody now, that especially Noah, Audrey, more interesting characters, that we can just continue anything that she kind of has to say through other characters or something. Like, I'm dead serious. That's how I would have started this season, is just like killing her off. Don't really need her. I would take more Kieran, actually. I think Kieran is somebody who was basically regulated to be nothing more than the major red herring last season. So, being that his dad died and we don't really know anything about him, that this would be probably the best character to go ahead and get into quite a bit more in this season. So hopefully that happens. I'm kind of just jumping all around here. And one thing I did notice, and I didn't do too much of this, but one thing I did notice was the person who, not the original user who like instigated the whole anti-Audrey thing, was called like user 4141 or something, but when he talks about it later and he's going through the text that Audrey's gotten and, linking them to this person who has been commenting on his podcast, that name is Daisy Pusher 99. Yuck, 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 yuck. Pushing daisies. And then, of course, our heroine's mother, Daisy, for anybody who somehow didn't watch season 1. The 99 could very well, I did the math, lead up to the fact that it's a 16-year-old. Again, leading towards this whole idea of like the cult thing, which is probably many through lines that they're working on. But the two who, quote-unquote, attack, prank, whatever, at the beginning, that the younger kids are idolizing them and want to be, it's basically what they did in Scream 4, but I wouldn't put it past them, being that Scream Season 1 was basically a ripoff of Scream 3, that Season 2 would be a ripoff of Scream 4. It's like they hire people who haven't seen the Scream movies. But anyway, it's still too early to tell on these guys. They at least seem like they're trying. Let's see. A lot of talk about dreams. We got dream sequences, which whatever. Noah points it out basically that horror has dream sequences. Like, we always want to have dream sequences. They're really good for style. They're really good for just breaking up the monotony of a lot of things. If you notice, the Scream movies didn't really deal with those too much. I assume because Wes Craven was just sick of dealing with them. There is a dream sequence in Part 3 with Sydney's mom. It's actually pretty damn creepy. That's probably one of the scariest parts of the Scream movies, in theory, is that dream sequence. So anyway, dream sequences can be fun, whatever. We'll see. It's just like, ugh, that could go bad. But other than my ugh, I am actually looking forward to that. I'm trying to stay positive about that whole thing. But anyway, he goes into talking about the horror comics, The Sheriff's Son. And specifically, he says, don't focus on the ending. There was a lot of stuff in here. The teacher at one point's like, that's the kind of dialogue I want to start hearing. And this is basically the writers taking time out of the script to just basically be like, this is what's going to be different. This is our mission statement, blah, 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 blah. I've read Hack Slash, a few issues. The whole Bedlam, I believe, is what he mentioned specifically. Haven't read that, but the thing is, I mean, he's basically talking about Audrey, like, that the whole thing of this season will be how bad is she, or whatever, and don't focus on the ending. That's a nice out for them. But again, I'm not being bitter or anything like that. I'm just saying. Anyway, their motives in their writing, right there on the wall. So then we move on to the ending, which I thought was very much like The Ring, strangely enough. But again, that's kind of cool because, like, they're just taking different kinds of horror and, like, putting them together. I mean, you might be like, The Ring, I don't get it. But if you remember when in The Ring she goes to Brian Cox's house, that guy who's in everything, and asks him about the horses and goes to the barns and everything, and he puts all the stuff in his mouth and, like, shocks himself, whatever. The colors, it's very green, very blue, very, like, architecture is basically the same. The lighting's kind of the same. It's very, rewatch those scenes, or hell, just think back to them. It's a very stylized movie. The ending was very much like The Ring, which is cool. That's fine with me. Then we go back to the movie theater, and we see that Audrey's somehow, this person is snuck in, whatever, it's fine, and put all the letters all up in a bathroom stall. So we get a little bit of a glimpse at that. I have to say that I did pause all that stuff. Anytime there was random flashes of images and Noah's board and everything, I stopped. Don't really have anything to report on that just yet, but it was kind of cool to get an idea of what her and Piper were talking to each other about. And then, of course, the big thing, R.I.P. Jake. Of course, they killed him right off the bat. That was the reason he survived that knife stab. in episode 7, they were like, just leave him alive. Then that's somebody we can kill at the beginning of season 2. So, not surprised to see him go. I kind of liked Jake, so, but I mean, whatever. People have got to die. This is what's got to happen, so that's fine. But see you later, Jake. Not surprised, and we'll see who's next. I'm just glad it wasn't Brooke, truthfully. Okay, so some of the other little side things, that's basically it for the episode. For the episode, I mean, I was really looking forward to this, and so it's expectation type thing, and doesn't really give you much to go on. It was as good as any episode was last season, I guess, without really being able to get into too much of the meat of stuff. I would say it's as good as, episode 4, possibly, of last season. So on the sliding scale of MTV Scream, I would give this episode a 7. It works, functions. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about, and I'll try and keep up with the comments, but it's getting pretty crazy over here trying to prep the movies and everything, is Scream After Dark. I saw the credit sequence, which I thought was really funny, and I really want to see it. I just don't, I didn't realize that was a thing, so I didn't set any kind of DVR. I have no idea if it comes on again. I just can't find any fucking information on here. Truthfully, I haven't looked very hard. But anyway, just wondering if it's any good. I don't watch any of those after talk show type stuff, but I'd probably watch it for this. Anyway, just let me know if it's worth the time. So, some of the things I did find, and I'm pretty sure that I found both of these on IMDb, so I remember, grain of salt, whatever, that it says for the next episode, or episode 3, that an unexpected person comes to town. I was like, oh fuck, is it Brock? I got really excited that Brock was coming back. But anyway, no, it looks like Sheriff Hudson's sister, I guess, some lady with the last name Hudson. So it might be, Kieran's mom. No, Kieran's mom died in a car crash. So maybe it's an ex-wife or a sister. Anyway, whatever. It's got the last name Hudson. And she's supposed to be appearing in the next few episodes, so that's who we're going to see. And then Branson is supposedly set to start appearing again in episode 3, which is called Vacancy. So that is basically all I know. This is basically kind of all I have the time for right now. I will be getting into killer theories, more in-depth reviews, that kind of stuff, when I can with the following episodes. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm probably, just to let you guys know, going to be doing this alone, if you couldn't tell. Nate just getting into it. I think he tried to watch the first 7 minutes and was like, yeah, dude, nope, not for me, not doing this again. Which I totally understand. But I love the show, and I really want it to be really good this season. And, God, fingers crossed. Here we go on that. So anyway, we are steady busy prepping our first movie, which is Echo River. I have a link in the description. Please click if you like these videos, would like to see more of them. More in-depth killer theories, that kind of thing. Not to ultimatum you guys, but just show your support. Donate $1 to our Indiegogo. We would really, really appreciate it. If nothing more than just a way to show your support. We're making this movie anyway, and we're approaching bigger, investment companies, that kind of thing. But yeah, just to show your support for these videos, for our past videos, and for us expanding into feature films. Just click on the link to our Indiegogo and yeah, send us $1. Very much appreciated. So anyway, that is what I'm spending all of my time on, and I've been wanting to watch Preacher. I've been wanting to watch the Wolf Creek series, and I start watching them and I'm just like, I got no fucking time for this kind of thing. but I got time for Scream. Not only do I have time for Scream, I have time to make some videos to talk about Scream. So I will see you next week for episode 2, which is called Psycho. I had to look. Anyway, so I'll see you next week for hopefully maybe some actual killer theories and review of season 2, episode 2, Psycho. Later on, guys.